Welcome to Boris Effects Live. Sponsored by Dell Precision Workstations. Create without limits. And by NVIDIA. And Intel.
Hello and welcome to Boris Effects Live. My name is Ben Brownlee with Boris Effects, and this is your fortnightly look into all things Boris Effects and beyond. And my fortnightly look into the fact that I still haven't learned to cut my own hair. So we're going to be looking at Continuum FCP today, which is amazingly exciting. And we have a great guest with us as well, who I will be introducing in just a second. But before we get to that, we are going to be doing this all live, obviously. So we want to hear from you. So if you haven't already done this, you can always ask your questions at YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're watching us on boriseffectslive.com, then you can, of course, fill in the chat there. We do want to hear from you. We have people in the chat asking you questions, and if we can't get to them in the chat, then we will obviously ask them live as well. And the other thing that you can do on Boris Effects Live is join us for the competition. We have some huge prizes to win. All you have to do is head on over to boriseffectslive.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and add your email address right there. Full terms and conditions can be found on the page. What do you win today? Well, you have the chance to win a 1 year subscription to Continuum worth $695, and one lucky winner will also be walking away with a 12-month subscription of the Boris Effects Suite. And the Boris Effects Suite is everything that we make, so that includes Continuum that you're going to be seeing today, and also Sapphire, Mocha Pro, Silhouette, and of course Optics for Photoshop and Lightroom. Now I also want to take this time to thank our sponsors, NVIDIA, Dell and Intel. They help make the live streams work, and of course Dell Precision Workstations, the #1 workstation brand in the world. We rock a lot of Dell Precision Workstations here at Boris Effects. I have one sat right next to me. Okay, but obviously I can't do this all by myself. Joining me from Mission Control is Mr. Brian Fox. Hello, Mr. Brian Fox.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Good to see you, Ben.
Look at that. It's good to see you as well.
How about those tunes? Right?
I mean, they were rocking out. This feels like a very refreshed look for Boris Effects Live. And what's going on?
If you guys have been watching our past live streams for the past year, we've been playing the same music in the in the open. So we figured time to refresh. We've been doing this for a year. Doesn't seem like that, but super excited. We got a great show today. We're going to look at Continuum FCP. Mr. Nick Harauz is with us. Very exciting. So it's going to be a good show.
It is very exciting. Should we bring Nick into the
let's do it.
Into the mix?
I'm going to try not to screw things up today. So that's all.
Let's go. Well, you never screw things up. Everything you do is artistic, and it's apart from this awkward. Oh my God. Mr. Nick Harauz, hello.
I love the transition.
Nick.
That's right.
So good. So good.
It's fancy.
We have with us one of the foremost trainers in the world. We have Mr. Nick Harauz. He is a certified trainer for Adobe and Apple. He has the big Final Cut course on LinkedIn Learning. He literally wrote the book on Motion 5. I mean, he's got so much stuff going on. Show us some stuff, Brian. Here we go. Yeah, this is the Final Cut webpage. And just scroll down a little bit, just a little bit for me. There we go. And let's take a look at our books. Oh, look at that. The motion cookbook. Very, very nice. What else do we have there? You can link. Right, come on.
Web tutorials.
Yes. Web tutorials. Come on, please. Look, LinkedIn Learning. It's right there. And look at that. Look at that. There we go. So we are honoured to have you with us today, Nick. You're also co-founder of Creation 111 with your partner.
Yes,
Nick Robinson.
With Ian Robinson. He's a big
Ian Robinson. Oh
trainer.
God, I messed that up.
Yes, and that was Ian. Something we started recently, about a year ago, or a few years ago now, and have been slowly building up in terms of training. And in terms of the name, it was inspired by one of the first films that was ever captured through photos. It's called Horses in Motion. And there were 11 standout photos that captured this Horses in Motion. So it stands for frame 1 to 11.
Very, very nice. If you want to learn more about that particular photo session, there is a very good book about it, whose name I've just absolutely blanked. So stay for the rest of this this live stream, and I'll bring you the name of that book that I read and enjoyed a lot. But that has nothing to do with what we're going to do today at all. What are you going to show us today, Nick?
I'm going to be showing you a Continuum in FCP. And am I correct? Is it a free beta, guys?
It is a free public beta at the moment, or beta, as I might say. So, so if after seeing this, you want to give it a go yourself, all you have to do is just pop over to boriseffects.com, go to the Continuum page, or actually there's like a giant banner for Continuum FCP, so just click on that and you can join the public beta right there.
Yes, and I'll be taking you...
Let's have a little look.
Excellent. Yes, let me start to share my screen. And one thing that I did love about the installation is that there's no license required. Once you go straight to the site and then you install it inside of FCP, you're good to start working with it. And I have a few recommendations for when you start to work with the effects. And you can find the majority of the effects and the transitions that ship with Continuum FCP over in either your effects browser or your transition browser. I'm going to head to the effects browser, and then here you'll see that I have all the video effects that are currently installed on my system. And what I want to do is actually type in BCC followed by a space and the plus symbol. And doing this will allow me to see the accelerated effects that ship with Continuum for Final Cut. And you can see there's quite a few here, Ben. And one of the things that I think is great for the value of these effects is that certain effects that we'll see very shortly, there's hundreds of presets installed within some of them, and that allows you to explore adding these effects onto clips in brand new ways. So let me start with something rather simple first of all. I'm going to go here and we'll get a sense of the workflow. So heading through these categories of effects, I'm going to apply a BCC sunset look, and you'll see automatically we get a grad filter that's applied. On the right-hand side is my inspector, and in the inspector is a little gateway that I can use to basically preview the effect in different ways, not to mention choose presets. And all it involves is a single click. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to click on the effects editor. I've now launched inside the effects editor, and you can see some of the presets that ship with this sunset look over here on the left-hand side. So I'll click on one of these, Sunset 3, another one, and here's one for Twilight. So these are all grad-based filters, and once you select any of these presets, you can adjust it further on your right-hand side. And the majority of the properties / parameters that you see here are also going to be available in your inspector in Final Cut. So your question might be, well, why are we heading into the effects browser? One reason is for those presets. The other reason is to do various comparison views if you're testing out certain looks for your project in Final Cut. So you'll see here at the top a variety of little buttons that I can press. I'm actually going to come over here and just do a side-by-side comparison. You'll notice at the bottom is the original clip, and here at the top is the actual effect that I've added to this clip. And if I start to make some adjustments over in the parameters, specifically to the opacity of one of the colors that is on this grad filter, you'll see that that updates. I'm just going to hop out of this comparison view for a second and actually take a snapshot of this actual filter. And instead, I'm going to test out another look. Let's go back to Sunset 3. I'm going to click on this A-B comparison again, not to mention actually come to this stills gallery where I've saved out a previous look. In fact, let me just show that again. And there we go. We can do even 3 comparisons of these various filters. And imagine doing this once you've made some tweaks to various properties and parameters within the effects editor. So that's one of my favorite things about it. There are a number of different ways that you can also rearrange the views and the layouts of the effects editor. And to me, I think effects deserves a dedicated workspace in certain cases when you are trying on whether it be various looks or certain effects that you'll be adding onto your projects or your video projects. So if I head up here to the File menu, you should note that, my apologies, the actual View menu. And there's my my first Canadian coming out there with that apology. There you go. Here under the View menu, you can see I've just switched over to a view layout that's going to switch the windows that show. I've got a full screen mode that I can also enable. And then just the edit layout, which is going to allow me to have my parameters over here at the side, as well as these looks. Another advantage to Boris Continuum in Final Cut is that you can save presets once you've made tweaks to the parameters, save your own presets. Those will be available for you inside the effects browser, not to mention that these can be shared cross-platform. So I'll show you 2 ways that you can do that, and there's then 2 different ways that you can sort of reference them in another application that supports Continuum. One way is here in the parameters. You'll notice a little icon here called Create Custom Preset. And once I single click this, here is my option to create a new preset. In fact, just so that it's not exactly the same, let me get out of this split screen view. And inside the parameters, just make a subtle change to the blue hue involved in that grad filter, as well as the purple, changing it to more to an orange. I'll head back here, and this is where I'm going to save the preset. You can see it automatically gets appended a number, Twilight 4 in this instance. I could add a description as well as tags to make this easier to find and to search for. See the search dialog box up here. There's also a number of ways to select your favorite presets and make them easier to access within this preset gallery or view. I'm going to choose OK. You can see there that Twilight 4 has been added. And if I head up to this menu right here, there's a custom preset storage location on your Mac OS. And if I click here, it's going to shoot me out to that location. And I can see these presets here. Uh-oh, there's the tunnel. Let me get rid of that for a second. Okay, here you can see the Sunset Twilight XML. I could copy this, and I could then share this with one of my colleagues. And I've done this with an earlier effect here, this Sunset for XML. Now, I had mentioned that there were two ways to save out these presets. So one is that XML file. The other is, if I head back into that effects editor, let's get there. Bear with me a sec. Okay, here we go. There is also a way from the File menu to save a setup. And here, if we save a setup, this allows you to store this setup preset in any location on your system that you want. So the preset itself from the Parameters tab is going to go to a specific location on your system, while this setup is going to allow you to save it to your desktop or your Documents folder, making it in some ways easier to access. And I just passed by on the File menu this option where you can even open a setup. And this is what's going to make that effect cross-platform. Now, Ben, I shared with you an effect yesterday, actually, this Sunset 4 look. And do you have that available?
You did. I do. Amazing. Hang on, let me come in. I'm just going to get my After Effects up and
sure.
Let's pipe all this in. While I'm doing that, because that's going to take like 3 seconds, Brian has a...
Oh, you guys, you're gonna make me work, huh?
Something. We're gonna make you work today.
No,
yeah.
some good questions from the crowd. Let me see. So Nick Helmet asks, can I have the effects editor also on the second screen? Is that possible to move the effects editor over to a secondary screen and work that way in FCP?
I have not myself personally tested this on my Mac, so I haven't done it with a secondary monitor that's compatible yet. But I know that in other applications this is true. Is this something that is already embedded? Because there is a monitor button in the effects editor for that. Do you know if it is working in Final Cut, Ben?
I don't know, actually.
Maybe
Peter's
yeah, I don't, in the chat. Maybe Peter.
Yeah, I actually don't. I think once you have the effects editor up, then the rest of the application is locked, so you wouldn't be able to do anything else in Final Cut, I believe, while the effects editor is open. So you could have it up on a secondary screen, but it would lock everything else up anyway for you.
While you get set up, Ben.
I'm there. So as soon as you hit me onto the one shot, I can
watch this.
I can do this. Hang on, here we go. And look and watch. And
I
then
love
watch
that transition.
And watch this. Oh no!
How do you guys do
What's
that?
happening? Ben, you're looping.
Oh my God! Something's not right.
See, the minute I get cocky,
I did not like that. I did not like that at all.
That was awesome.
That was awful.
It's like a Sapphire time effect.
Oh my God! Right. Okay. Reminder to never press that button again. That was my desktop only button. Right. I'm not going to do that. Okay. Yeah. I'm just going to spark up the effects editor in After Effects now. So it's just because we were talking for so long, it's actually my hard drive has to load up again now as well, or spin up again. So let's cut back to you, shall we, Brian?
Sure.
What you were saying.
Hold on 1 second. Look at boom, I got buttons. Just to reset a little bit, just so everybody knows kind of what we're talking about. We're showing Continuum effects in FCP. We are currently in the middle of a free public beta for Continuum in FCP. Continuum has been redesigned from the ground up, specifically tweaked for Final Cut Pro. So if anyone out there is a Final Cut Pro editor in Washington wants to try these effects, you can download the software that you're seeing right now and use it today completely free. You just want to go to borisfx.com. Look at that, right? You just want to go to borisfx.com and click on Products, Continuum FCP, and you can download the installer and hit the ground running. You don't need a license code or anything. Just go ahead and download the installer. You will need to sign in for a free Boris FX account, so just create a free login. Go ahead and click the right here in the instructions, download the installer. And then there's actually a really cool beta forum too as well, where you can ask your questions, you can have access to the developers and the product managers who actually write this amazing software. You can give your feedback and actually help shape the future of the product. So really cool public beta going on right now if you're interested in Continuum FCP. So everybody should go and download it because it's free, man, right? Why would you not? It's free. Go ahead and check it out. How we doing, Ben?
Absolutely. I'm ready. The hard drive has woken up. Look at this. Right. So all I'm going to do, hit the FX editor. We're back. And look, there's that Sunset 4 that Nick sent me yesterday. I can see he sent me it because he's put his name in there. Look at that.
Nice.
And I can even open up the setup that he sent as well. So long as I haven't cleaned it up, which is my fancy way of saying deleted it. No, I've deleted it. So, but I could have opened up the setup that he had there, just with file open setup, and that's working not only cross-host but cross-platform. Nick is obviously working it on a Mac because that's Final Cut, and I'm working on Windows in a completely different application. So, yeah. Cross-host, cross-platform.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. I think nowadays, people are hopping in and out of so many different apps, right? Using, things like Resolve and After Effects and Final Cut and Premiere. So to be able to kind of hop back and forth and know that you're not locked into one actual system, that you can create an amazing look in Continuum and go ahead and share that over with Premiere or send that to Resolve. To me, that's really like the future of kind of all post-production, right? Is like different tool for different tasks, having all of these kind of amazing tools at your disposal.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
Ooh.
And I think also just on a preset front or a preset level, just even being able to save that for a use later on in Final Cut can be very helpful with the effects that you save it to. And to kind of continue along this conversation, I'm just going to hop back into Final Cut, but let me start sharing my screen again. And I've actually, all I did to get back into the Final Cut interface from the effects editor, I'm going to hop back inside of it, was click on this apply button here at the bottom right hand corner. And that brings me right back into Final Cut. And you can see that that effect has been placed onto the clip. Now, one thing that makes me very excited about some of these color correction looks, and if you do download the beta, I encourage that you guys go in and play with a few effects in particular, because there's thousands of presets, which I'm about to get to. But another point of excitement for me is in the idea of combining these looks as well as all of these effects with other tools that are built inside of Final Cut. So let's look at one of those workflows. I have this shot here. And the intention is to give this a day for night look. I'm going to do a search actually in the all category of the effects. Just type in the word day. And here is Final Cut's day for night. Just going to apply it onto the clip quickly so that you can see that preview where it's basically making things a lot bluer as well as desaturating the clip a bit. This specific look has only a limited amount of effects or parameters in this case. And then for stylistic looks that you might want at night, where you might want a nice soft diffusion from the moon, you'd have to apply another effect and stack it on top. And here is the case where we might want to use this BCC day for night. It's named the same, but the starting point or the starting place when you place it onto a clip is in a very different place. I'm just going to make this full screen for a second. Play that clip back from the beginning. We can see a nice soft diffusion in terms of the lighting, as well as that blue look, and then the desaturation that's commonly placed into, of course, a nighttime scene where we just don't see as well at night. If I go here and show some of these parameters, you'll see that you've got several categories and then several properties underneath each of them where you can start to color correct this. And it might be just that, well, maybe what you want is the diffuse look as well as the moonlight that's been applied on top, but then to utilize some of Final Cut's color correction tools beforehand just to have a little bit more control of contrast. And this is where what we could do, I'm just going to turn off this effect temporarily. Every single clip in Final Cut is built with a color inspector. Like you can apply a color effects from the effects browser, but this color inspector is available just behind the video inspector. And it's from here that you can actually apply a bunch of color correction looks. Here I'm just going to go in and apply some very simple color wheels. We've got 4 here. And just before I apply that day for night look, I want to just bring down the highlights a bit in the shot. Maybe make sure that the shadows themselves don't get completely crushed when that look comes on. And then have additional control there for my midtones and my master, but have that nice soft diffuse look that's been applied in addition with the day for night look. And here's that combination. I can always go back to that color correction look, and just to show it to you, it was actually applied after the day for night look. However, we can change that effect order if we wanted to it be applied beforehand or after. And you can save this as a combination, and this is now useful inside of Final Cut as a combined effect using some of Final Cut's architecture along with continuums. That's as simple as when you go to the File menu here, you'll see that you can save this as a video effects preset. And this could be done with continuum effects as well. You could stack multiple continuum effects together, making your workflow easier the next time that you apply this onto clips inside your Final Cut timeline. Now, so far, and I just want to go inside of day for night for a second. We're seeing in the effects editor, it's like, oh, okay, there's 6 or 7 presets to a given effect, right, from the few that I've showed you here. Let me apply that again. And for those ones, that is true. There are just a few, but let's get into some of the candy, as I like to call it. And I would say there's multiple candy sections, but 2 in terms of color correction looks. I'm just going to go BCC plus and then just type in let me try that again. Oh yeah, I want to go to the all category. I think I had an extra space in my search, but now let me just type in the word right after looks. So I'm going to start with looks here. And just like we've done before, we can apply it to a clip. One thing that's deceiving about looks when you first select it is that, okay, well, I'm expecting to see a film look and you don't. The magic happens when we step inside the effects editor. And when I step inside the effects editor, Brian and Ben, take a look at that. It's not like you haven't seen this before, but it's still pretty awesome.
Still pretty cool.
Yeah. So all of these are available to you. They're all different stylistic looks that you can use and apply directly in Final Cut, combining it with the other color correction tools that are available to you. And the list just goes on in terms of looks. Now I was saying there was like 2 candy sections, right? So here's one, and I'm just flipping between some of these awesome looks that you can apply into your video. Do you guys, Brian, Ben, do you guys like one in particular? What's catching your fancy right here from the little thumbnail?
I mean, I like some of the warm ones. There we go. And then we can just, maybe just pull that back a little bit. I like that.
Yeah, see, I'm the polar opposite. I like the steel. I like the bleach bypass, the cold, hard, miserable looks. No, just kidding. No, I really like those. I really like steel, and I like those bleachy bypass. give it
Okay,
that
so
video.
so this is actually perfect. Okay, we've got two people who have different production ideas.
It's
right
just
now,
a window
okay?
into our souls, you know.
Yeah, just a window into your soul. So I've chosen Ben's look first. Okay, so that's the warm, the saturated, and then there's another producer who has a completely different vision for this story. So what I'm going to do is use some of a Final Cut method here under the Modify menu, where what I can do, sorry, it's under the Clip menu, is make a duplicate copy of this clip through something called an audition. So I'm going to take this audition and I'm going to duplicate this clip from its original. That's the clip without an effect. And you'll notice one small change to this clip in my timeline. And that is it has a little spotlight badge. Can you guys see that? It's like I'm hovering over it with my mouse. And if you
top
click,
left-hand corner.
Top left-hand corner, yeah. So, and once I click on that, you'll see here, hey, there's that original clip. And then there's that clip with the actual desaturated look. So why not? I'm going to come in here. And I'm going to now add a new version of BCC looks. And then once that's applied onto that clip that I just duplicated into an audition, I'll head to the effects editor. Brian, what was it? It was really cold and dark. Am I correct? That's what you're going for?
Cold, dark, and it's going to last the rest of your life.
Cross print is how are you feeling about that, or do you want cool to saturate?
Steel.
Let's go.
Steel.
Just steel? Is there a blue steel or just a steel?
Just steel.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
All right.
Booyah.
Look at that too. What's that on top of the look? Is that this looks really nice.
Why do you sound surprised?
It just looks really nice.
You're like, you actually picked something nice. It's amazing. Okay. Amazing. You got lucky.
Yeah. And here, so I've applied that to the clip. I'm going to come back here into the Final Cut timeline, and you'll see, okay, there's that duplicate clip that I just auditioned, and there is Ben's look. And if any of you guys have worked in DaVinci Resolve or maybe another color correction application, you're familiar with adding multiple grades onto clips. And this is one of those workflows where you can audition a clip by duplicating it and then just have multiple looks. And by the way, there's a shortcut that allows you to cycle between these audition looks. And since it's just a Mac, that shortcut is a Control Option right arrow. So let me select my clip. Just press the C key to do that. If you press the Control Option right arrow, you'll notice I'm just cycling between the two looks there on the timeline. I can also do that while playing back. However, I'm not really to go down that dark road just in case of the beta software, the laptop that I'm running at this on.
Yeah, really
I'm gonna stick with this as a win.
Really cool power tip though, being able to cycle through those effects so easy. Love that, auditioning different looks.
Yeah, and so you can audition and you can continue to duplicate, by the way, by going to that clip menu and adding more clips or auditioning them as you continue to go forward. And we were talking the other day, you mentioned one of your favorite color correction effects. Can you remind me what that was again?
Me? Oh, I love film stocks. Film stocks is without doubt my number one favorite effect.
So I'm just going to apply that onto the clip. We saw looks. We know that we can go to the effects editor to take a look at all of the various presets that are available.
Just while you're looking through, can I just need, because someone in the chat asked a question and it's now being clarified a little bit. Because they were asking about having the effects editor on a second screen. I assumed it was like just a second desktop screen. But it turns out, I think they were talking about whether you could take the output of the effects editor onto your client monitor or onto your broadcast monitor. And that's something you absolutely can do if you have compatible hardware with it. So, I mean, if you do have you don't have a separate card on there, do you, Nick? So what I'll do is
not on this setup right here.
I'll cut to me. Because and you'll see it when we go back to Nick as well. There's this little button over here, and this button over here lets us just take stuff out to another monitor, to your output external monitor, and you can obviously take it out at whatever resolution your monitor supports and what your hardware supports. So I've just got a little Blackmagic get link in there, and that will take it out, and I can now preview that just on the screen to the right of me. So that one there.
Very great.
Obviously
works great.
Yeah.
OCIO, right? You want to manage your workflow too. You want to manage your color pipeline. Integrated OCO will take care of you.
That's it.
Amazing. And going back to your favorite effect here, Ben, there's a lot of stocks.
Oh, there's tons. There's tons. There's so
Are they
much
from
good
all of
stuff.
the
It's
major,
so much gold.
They're from all the major film companies too, right? So we've got Fuji.
Yeah, they're
seeing
emulations
Eastman
of those film stocks, yeah.
here.
And you can even filter those as well, because there's so many, where it says all in the top left-hand corner. You can,
I just
you
did a
can
little,
filter by
search.
Yeah.
And then if I go here, I can just kind of see motion picture films. And then popular looks like you're cross-processing. This is fantastic.
Yep.
And then once you find
most of the stuff that I make has one of those at about 10% opacity right at the very end, just to give it a little something.
So you take basically one of these looks and you put it at a very low opacity, and just to give a look to your pieces. Very cool.
Yeah.
And then you'll have all of the controls here for the amount of the overall look. If I'm looking here in the parameters tab, the parameters section here, not to mention all of the properties that are underneath in terms of color correction. You can see even a few other categories. So you've got control for vignetting. One of my favorites too, which is added into all of these actual film stocks, which is your control over the grain and all of the parameters for that grain. Very cool. And any of these parameters, we can just take the opacity and we can bring it down and mix it into the shots that we're working on. And just like before, apply it into Final Cut. Sometimes, this is not on all projects or high budget projects by any means, but you might want to have a look on all of your clips in your Final Cut timeline, emulating one of those film stocks. One workflow built directly into Final Cut is the idea of placing everything into a compound clip, which is very similar to a nest in both in Premiere Pro or other NLE applications. There is another way, and this is if you have motion, which you can set up, or alternatively, if you go on YouTube and do a search for Final Cut adjustment layer, you can download one of these for free, which is like basically a title generator. You can place it on top of all of your clips and then apply these film stock looks to all of the clips into your timeline. So the way that this works, it's worth mentioning, Motion offers a variety of different opportunities as it comes to working in Final Cut. And one of those is your ability to kind of create what's known as a Final Cut title. I didn't do that correctly, so let me just go back to new right now. I created just a regular untitled Motion project. I know just because when you go into a default title, what you see is a title and then basically a clip for a background source, or basically having a background reference. Once I choose to open this Motion project, there's that title background, so you can drag in any clip that you want to use as your background title source. And here is a title. Just to see this a bit better, I'm going to go over, and there's the title there on the bottom left. To make an adjustment layer, this is all you have to do. You take the title, you delete it. So I'm just going to remove that from the project. And then we save this out. That's it. So one thing you can do to make this easier to find in Final Cut is rather than have it saved as untitled, so when we go in and to save this title, there we go. I think for some reason the playback's getting in the way, but the great news here is that I've already saved out this adjustment layer. So you'll go to a menu where you save out this adjustment layer, and then you can choose to save it into a specific category and a theme to make that easier to find. And once you do, simply head back into Final Cut, and we're going to go bring up the browser, and just behind that is the Title and Generator sidebar. In the Title and Generator sidebar, I'll just do a search here at the top for adjustment, and there it is. So to get it to work on, let's say, the clips that are currently in my existing Final Cut project, one thing I love to do is just to make in and out points in the timeline very quickly. So I'm going to go to the beginning and press I to make an in point, move to the end and press O to make an out point, just selecting all of those clips. And if you wanted only this adjustment layer to last over 3 clips that were in your timeline, you can just do that. And this will demonstrate it better, actually. So I'm going to grab that adjustment layer, and I'm going to press the Q key. And by pressing Q, it connects it or places it on top of those clips, but also matches the length of the segment that I had basically marked in my timeline. So just showing that again, I'll make an out point here at the end, and then just press Q, and there's my adjustment layer. So to see this, I'll just kind of move over one of these shots here. Thanks, Ben. And grab, there's the film stocks look. By default, there is no look. So let's go inside the effects editor. And let's choose, kind of love that carbon look. I'll apply it. I'm going to head back into Final Cut. We should see, you guys can see that that's been applied to all of the clips. I know some of these have effects, but there's your adjustment layer in Final Cut, courtesy of Apple Motion. And
that's a really good workflow for cheating an adjustment layer. I love that.
Yeah, and it's just a blank title. And again, if you don't have Motion, don't worry. Like literally, you can go on YouTube, and there's about 6 or 7. I can give you some links after, Brian, but different people who provide like the adjustment layer for free. And Ben, was it like 10% opacity you're saying? So now that it's on an adjustment layer. Yeah. Yeah, so you have like the mix value that's built into the film stock look, but you know, you could let's actually use that because it doesn't seem to be mixing right. And then with that lower mix value, this is about 37%. But there you go. That's now mixed into each of these clips, that film stock look, with an adjustment layer.
Love it.
I think that's kind of a cool way to utilize Final Cut in its effect system. You've then got, you know, your saving presets that we've discussed, and then the ability to have the adjustment layer and apply it to like all the clips in your Final Cut timeline. And the best part about this is it's trimmable, right? So if you only really want to have it as an effect over 2 of your clips, there you go. In a professional workflow, more than likely you'll be applying individual looks to each of your shots first, and then you could maybe then apply the adjustment layer over top to make them match even more for when you've done that original matching.
Cool. I've got a quick question actually from chat, which is about film stocks, and how are these different from LUTs? Thank you, Harold Morgan, for that.
I think that when it comes to LUTs in regards to Final Cut, you essentially apply your lookup table to a clip, and you have a minimal amount of control of that lookup table or look, right? So in many essence, you have an import LUT control. You apply it onto a clip in a number of different ways, and all you can really do is control the opacity of that effect. Now, besides that, let me just actually apply the film stock. I would say that where lookup tables or LUTs are sometimes also utility-based for certain cameras, right? So you have stylistic lookup tables, and then you have utility-based lookup tables, which are meant to give you a grading head start when you're filming in a flat-based format. Let's say like a Sony log format. You could use a utility-based LUT to give your grade a head start. But then again, it's just kind of an automatic grade. You can control the opacity of it. Film stocks, Ben, you had mentioned this earlier, is there to sort of emulate different film stocks, and not to mention it's the amount of control that you have over this. So besides the presets and all of the presets that you have here, it's the several properties and parameters that you can use to control the power of the grain, the amount that a certain color might be involved in influencing the look, as well as that every single one of these, or most of these parameters or properties, are keyframeable to some degree in Final Cut. Would you have something to add, Brian and Ben, on this?
Well, I was going to say that I think you're right. I think the fact that you've got the vignette and the grain built directly into the effect, I mean, that puts it head and shoulders above LUTs in terms of utility, in that sort of way, because LUTs are only affecting the color. You can basically mix it in with the color that you want, or just take it out again. That's pretty much it with something like the film stocks, and in fact all of the those sort of color correction presets. The presets are the start point. They're not just the end goal. You can do so much more to customize them to your actual footage.
Yes. So and you've got this workspace with all of those properties, and even with a couple tweaks and then bringing down the opacity, you have a film look, and this could complement those existing Final Cut color correction effects that you always use, and add on to it by having this arsenal of looks. And when I see different social media videos that are influenced by different film stocks, having a great starting place or jumping point right here can be extremely handy in that process to emulate those looks. In talking about
Nick, you mind if I just, maybe you haven't noticed, but I have a new toy which allows me to bring on-screen messages on. So, if you think I'm not going to hit that button, you don't know me too well. So Mike Smith asks, is this suite just for Apple devices? Ben, you want to take this one?
Oh, yes, I'd love to. So put me up. There we go. No, it's not. You've got, obviously, Continuum FCP is Continuum for Final Cut and Apple Motion. But obviously, Continuum works across different hosts. So, obviously things like Adobe After Effects, Premiere Pro, OFX hosts like Resolve as well. So it's really got a very, very wide breadth of compatible hosts and compatible flat platforms. And of course, because Brian's got this already set up, you can see a list of compatible hosts and operating systems available at borisfx.com.
What?
We're not that sort of.
I love it.
Not that sort of sleek production value.
This ain't that type of show. Okay, who's in control here? All right, it's fine. Give me a second.
I was about to say I'm impressed.
No,
I would have been impressed as well.
After Effects, Resolve, Avid Media Composer, Final Cut Pro, Magix Vegas.
Yes.
DaVinci Resolve.
Yes.
What? Corel. I can hear Peter in my brain right now, because I'm missing so many. But,
telling you all of the different ones.
Yes, let's
well,
just say,
that's why we have
right?
a list of compatible hosts on the website.
That's why we keep a list on the internet. Okay, let's go back to Nick.
Keep going.
Ignore me.
I was going to say also one thing I do like about the continuum effects that you guys have on the website is the before and after interactive examples, like the sliders that you have on the website. I think are fantastic to sort of give you an idea of what's possible with some of those effects, even before you download. All right, so hopping back here into Final Cut, I wanted to kind of show you guys a few more things in terms of this robust collection of effects. Let me just hop into, let's go into some of the BCC Lite benefits. So I'm just going to do a search for BCC Lite, and let's apply that to one of the shots here in my timeline. Just apply it to this one. Let's make sure I haven't made any changes. There we go. And automatically you can see that BCC Lite actually ships with Gobos. The idea of having some sort of, we can say, source in between the main subject and your light, creating a filmic type look that's usually experimented quite a bit in terms of various studios. So I might have to pause for a second, just because Final Cut's still thinking. No, it is doing great. There we go. Now there are all different types of experiments that you can do with this, and just like we've seen with film stocks, as well as looks, quite a few parameters that you can play with, not to mention texture patterns that you can use as your Gobo source. So let me go here to the effects editor, and let's just take a preview again of all of the various things we can use as a Gobo. Okay. So you can see here on the left-hand side the amounts of various patterns you can use as your Gobo. And just like you had mentioned before, Ben, I love the fact that you can kind of break it down into various categories that might be useful for the Gobos that you're trying to emulate with the light. Out of curiosity, guys, is there any category that you like the most?
I like a lot of the natural ones, like just for giving just that little bit of something over the top. Just something that's a bit subtle and not too, like some of the water stuff. The water drops are always quite fun.
I'm like hard Venetian blinds. Hard Venetian blinds.
I knew you were going to be hard Venetian blinds.
As crystalline
so I'm going to need
as you
to
can
do. Let's just see here. I'm going to try to bring up the brightness because it's not translating the GoPro right now through the effects editor. Can you guys see that a bit better now? The pattern?
Yep.
Now, I think part of the reason, what might be beneficial right now is let me just reset all of the parameters. There's a little hooked arrow here, which just gives you a starting place because I think I was playing with the effect previously before adding it, but you can see that sort of water drop pattern that you were talking about, Ben, some of that natural. And of course, you can bring up the brightness of that pattern or bring it down. And I think one great feature here is the displacement that would take place if this texture or source would be on the subject's face, or in certain cases, depending on wherever that texture is shining. So you can have you have this displacement amount, which you can control, which is going to take that texture and warp it a bit. On top of the texture, you have full control. And Ben, you were mentioning some of your favorite controls here are your ability to crop the texture. But on top of that, you can also, if you're looking to have the texture, let's say, take up the entire screen, you could scale it up or scale it up on an individual axis by simply disconnecting the horizontal and vertical axis of that texture. Obviously, at the end here, we're going to want to bring down the brightness, but I do find it beneficial to sort of take a look at some of these textures at a higher brightness value so you can sort of see the patterns a bit more clearly. There's some water caustics, which is quite nice. Experimenting quite a bit here with the blurriness amount, not to mention the amount of displacement that you're going to want to add in. Now, I was just thinking, in regards to this, I was actually talking to Ben just before this. In certain cases, you might want to, let's say, have a light flickering or movement with these gobos, depending on the sources that you're going to want to add them to. So many of the parameters here in Final Cut are, of course, keyframeable. Let me actually just apply a new version of BCC Light here to this clip. And it's thinking about it. It's almost there. Still thinking about it a little bit, but I have high hopes.
It's beta software.
I want to show you.
I don't know if we mentioned this
exactly.
is beta software.
And it's done quite a good job so far. So, you know, it's just trying to keep me on my toes, Brian. Here we go. All right, so try adding that again because I didn't see. Okay, so there we have a pattern. Nice. And let me head into the effects editor. Select one of these. There's a bunch of door patterns, which I think are really nice for certain situations, especially with close-ups of people's faces. Some are a little bit more abstract than others. I have some curved ones here, but I quite do like the simplistic shape ones. I'm going to bring down the brightness and bring up the displacement a bit of this. We can clearly see that. And then also just blur this a little bit. So, and Ben, you were mentioning that there's also cropping controls directly for the gobo. And you should just know that while you have this directly inside the effect editor, you also have the additional control of the built-in mask, Final Cut's built-in mask on every single effect. So while this is going to give you sort of a crop to the top, bottom, left, and right of your frame, if I apply this gobo and hop back inside of Final Cut, let me just press C to select that clip again. Here is BCC Light, and you'll notice just to the right of it is the mask controls that are built onto every effect in Final Cut. So you could come in here and do one of two things, which is, in most cases, you're going to probably want to add a shape mask, but just a different type of mask or circular mask that you can use maybe in certain specific situations. That's just an added benefit on top of the crop controls that you have available. And then saving, if this was something that you were going to use or utilize several times, you could then, of course, save this as a Final Cut effect, and it would save it with the mask. There's the mask source, along with your full-on ability to, of course, invert the mask source. Now, I was just thinking that, you know, in certain cases, you might want to take that gobo and have either maybe a slight movement to it, depending on the light source or the environment that you're trying to mimic. And maybe in certain cases, you might, depending on the lighting that's already in the scene, have this gobo blink. And there's, of course, ways of doing that manually inside of Final Cut, but this is a great example of where you could do actually something super quick in Motion if you have it installed on your system, Apple Motion, which opens up a ton of animation possibilities inside the Final Cut environment, and actually save a new version of this effect with some subtle animation. Just heading to some more of these properties here. Now, of course, we can adjust the anchor of the gobo, as well as the shear, to customize this exactly how we would like to show it up on our subject in a believable way, versus the small amount of time that I have here demonstrating this to you. So for this, I'm actually going to take this original BCC light effect and I'm going to open this in Motion. And I'm going to give everyone a warning here, which is you don't want to save it right away. Because if you do make a change and you save it, you're actually saving over the BCC light effect right now if you have it on your system. What I'm going to do instead right away is actually press Shift-Command-S in order to save a new version of this, which I'm just going to call Light Animated. And just to keep with the actual naming conventions of Continuum in Final Cut, add a BCC and the plus. You'll probably want to save it under a specific category where that light exists, and maybe a theme for your custom effects to make it easier to find in your effect browser. So I'm going to choose this. I've now saved and created that new theme and categorized it. Now I'll just make some subtle changes to it. And you'll see here that just like a title, every effect has a source. This is actually known as a drop zone. And the whole idea is that you could take a piece of footage from your system, and then you could test this out. So let me just grab a source that we can work with temporarily while viewing this gobo from in BCC Lite. If you're looking to feel more comfortable in Motion, and again, we're only going to press like 3 buttons in here before going back into Final Cut if this is something new to you. And I'm to make myself have a workspace that's more similar to Final Cut's, I'm actually going to go to the Window menu and go to Window Layout, where I'll choose a Cinema layout. This moves the inspector, which is on Final Cut's right-hand side, Motion's inspector on that side as well, just so that we can see all of the parameters of the selected clip, asset, or layer, depending on what you'd like to call it. And here we have all of the properties of the filter that we're working with right now. So one thing I just want to have a subtle kind of light fluctuation of the brightness. And you know, there's several different ways that we can add this to maybe the movement of the gobo as well, like just have it move subtly on the screen depending on, again, the clip that we're working with. But for the animation of the brightness, all I'm going to do is right-click the property of brightness, and there's something called parameter behaviors. The best way to think about this is if you're from After Effects or another application. This is like animation without keyframes, and even doing certain simulations without having to write an expression. And it's extremely powerful. One of these is just the simple wriggle expression. What it does is, right away, if I just sort of press the space bar to play this back, you'll see that it's making that gobo blink inside of Motion, just back and forth, and it's adding up to an amount of 500. Quite extreme. But what we would do is just take the amount value of the wriggle, make it subtle, like 20 or 10, and have a very soft wiggle or jump between values. The other thing about this effect is that right now, if I actually head to the filter itself where the behavior is affecting the brightness automatically, it's just adding to the brightness value. And what I wanted to do is, based on the brightness value that I've set, is add and subtract to it. So heading back to this behavior, I'm just going to go here and add and subtract so that the value becomes smaller as well as greater by this value that I've set. In terms of how often it happens, that's just a question. See? And the cool part about this, I'll make this a little bit more extreme. just so that we can see it a bit better. Also with the slower playback. I'm not sure how this is translating through the live stream, but hopefully you guys can definitely see that. Now the great part about this is that just doing this simple animation, of course you can go back and you can tweak it, but as I move to different gobos, here if I go to the effects editor and let me select a different pattern and then just apply that pattern, you'll see that that flickering or brightness travels through. And we still have the ability to lower the original brightness value. We can actually deactivate the flicker temporarily to do that, and then it will add and subtract to that new value that we've placed. Once you're happy with whatever you've set up here with that animation value or property, you can send it back over into Final Cut. The only other thing that you might want to do is, let's say, move the pattern of the gobo and maybe have it just a subtle and constant movement over a subject. And for that, we can go to one of the anchor points where you could, as you can see, this is going to offset the gobo's position. Of course, I can just grab 2 keyframes to animate this, but in this case, I'll add a parameter behavior called rate. And what this does is it just constantly adds or moves the rate of an object based on a specific value that you enter. So I'll enter a rate of 2, which is quite aggressive, although still a small value. And while that's flickering that brightness, do you guys see the movement of it also on the y-axis right now? Let me lower the amount of the flicker a bit. And let's go back to the beginning of the timeline. Actually, let me increase the amount of the flicker. And also go to the filter and, yeah, maybe a slightly higher brightness than 0 would help out. Be great. But you have this animated flicker now, no keyframes, and again, adjustable anytime that you go back into motion, plus a subtle movement there to the GoPro, and of course, to the gobo, and then with some finessing, this just adds some really nice animation that would be a lot more difficult to set up inside of the Final Cut application. But to doing that, and then you can see here, I can actually save this out if I want, and also save out the media that I've added this to. But inside of Final Cut, I'm going to have an animated light now. So let me search for that. I'll just type in BCC light. We'll see what comes up. And I've got one that I saved earlier here, the BCC lights animated, which takes a pattern. And there's some subtle movement, a really subtle change in displacement, as well as a subtle blink. Of course, overall, I like to sort of see the gobo at first, but then you're going to want to scale back on the actual brightness overall so that the effect ends up being more subtle on the source that you've added it to. I did some experiments with some gobos earlier too. Let me remove one of these effects, where I combined the idea of a gobo with one of Final Cut's effects, which sort of simulates water on a screen. So you have a GoPro, and I don't know if you guys have seen this in Final Cut, but there's one effect that does a pretty good job of trying to simulate a water pane and just adds that over top of everything. You can make some pretty interesting looks there through that combination. I'm just checking here to see. Yeah, I've added, I think, yeah. Let me bring down the brightness of that the gobo. So I think that
adds a lot more life to that effect. I think that's really, really nice. It's a great little effect there. So just adding the gobo over the top and animating it slightly gives gives that sense of motion, gives that sense of movement in the camera. Love it.
Yeah, and there's some, like you were saying, there were some different water simulations that were in there as well, some water caustics and some fire, and sometimes some of that flicker could really help add some extra cell to your productions for when you need them on your subjects. So I think that is pretty cool. And I also just love the fact that you can take some of these effects and you can send them over like with one click to motion and add with as much as it might be for and the idea of adding a parameter behavior. There weren't too many controls that I changed in order to have some animation of that gobo without keyframes, which again, I think is just a really cool thing about how motion is integrated into Final Cut.
I mean, I've got a question about that. It actually came from the chat, which is about using Continuum FCP in motion, and whether there were any gotchas about doing that. Anything that people have to, take care of.
In terms of if there's any, I've had a great experience
just
overall
differences.
with adding.
Just differences of putting it in.
Yeah, I think that motion has its own workflow. I think that in certain cases that you're going to have more control over your keyframes for animating certain things based on various workflows. But I haven't personally run into any gotchas that I would call out. I don't know if there might be a gotcha with something else, but through my testing, I've actually had a really good experience with motion, and pretty much the workflow is identical in terms of applying something to a layer in motion, and then you still having access to the effects browser, which you can search for the various presets that it ships with, and then apply that and then go back into motion. Adding on to this, though, I think another benefit of this whole entire workflow, because I think that there's also a lot of room for exploration with gobos outside of their natural source, their essential textural patterns, which I think could be used for a variety of different treatments, including adding on to, let's say, texture generator sources in certain cases. So thinking outside of the box with them and that extensive collection of textures, not to mention there is also a texture effect, which creates some textures as well, could create some really interesting backgrounds that you can mix in with your Final Cut text. The other thing that I was going to show, we have a few more minutes, right, guys?
Oh, can I? I'm going to break you in because you're too eager, and I have got another question
I'm
again
too
about motion.
I'm too excited.
You are.
Sorry.
I mean, there's too much
away.
Basically, there's been a lot of people asking about masking and motion tracking, and generally speaking, in Continuum, those are two things that are normally handled by the built-in version of Mocha that comes within the Continuum effects. But Continuum FCP, especially with things like the cinematographer's toolkit that we've been looking at, that doesn't have Mocha built in yet. So would you sort of do that kind of motion tracking within motion itself, or what would you think?
Yes, that's a great question. So for the tracking portion of it, if it's simple enough, you could do like a manual rotoscope then inside of Final Cut with like keyframes of a mask. So you have the ability of on each effect, you have a circle mask and a rectangle mask. You also have a standalone Bezier mask, right, where you could draw a pen shape, very specific mask, but that would then require you with an effect to duplicate a clip and then add the Bezier mask on top of that and then blend the two clips together, versus the built-in mask with the rectangle and the oval shape. You can manipulate the shape, you can change the feather, you can invert it, and you could add some very simple keyframes for a variety of different tasks. However, as mentioned, there is no tracking to that. So that's where, like you had mentioned, you'd go to motion, and motion has behaviors specifically for point-based tracking that you can use to integrate those effects. Besides that, you're then looking at third-party software to continue that tracking journey outside of that one that's available, but there's a match move track as well as a point tracker. And both of those could be utilized for some of these effects workflows.
Great. I think that will definitely answer most people's questions for that there. Before we go on, Brian.
Yes,
do we have some competition winners?
You're in sync, my friend.
It's been a year almost. We're kind of getting each other's rhythms.
Finally, you're in my head.
Before we do this, though, before we do anything else, I'm going to ask everyone to do one favour. This is the begging part of the stream. This is where I ask people, if you're watching on YouTube, just underneath the viewer, there's a little icon that looks like this. If you can click on that, but only once, it needs to turn blue. So give us a like. It costs you nothing. It helps us out an awful lot. Now back to our regularly scheduled, not begging part of the live stream.
Shameless.
I know. I used to be really embarrassed about that, but now you know what? It's one click. It's one click. You can do it.
That's what the kids
if you're watching on borisfxlive.com, there's nothing to stop you from clicking on the little hop to YouTube button and then clicking on that little blue button as well. Nothing to stop you.
What was the shape of that button again, Ben?
Oh my!
It looks a little bit like this, but it's not blue.
Okay.
Okay, congratulations to Sonia Spader, who has won a 12-month subscription for Continuum. Well done, Sonia. I hope you're going to enjoy that and get a lot of good use out of that. It's 12-month subscription to Boris Continuum.
That is Continuum.
And our big winner today,
too, by the way, multi-host.
Multi-host. Oh my God!
Works in everything. Works in After Effects, Premiere, FCP, Vegas, Resolve, Nuke, all of them.
And of course, if you're working in Final Cut, you should be joining the public beta for that to be working.
Everybody's a winner.
With these effects right now today.
Everybody can get Continuum for Final Cut. All right, here we go. Here we go with the Boris Effects Suite winner.
Come on,
Ready?
next one. Let's go.
Awesome.
We have, oh my God, that is a lovely transition. Well done to Ro Panuganti. Sorry, Ro, I apologise. I don't get to see these names in advance. You have won a 12-month subscription to the Boris Effects Suite. This is everything that we make, including Continuum that you're looking at today. But you also get Sapphire, Mocha Pro, Silhouette, and of course Optics as well. So congratulations, Ro, for winning the 12-month subscription to the Boris Effects Suite. We will contact you in the next few days to give you the codes and everything that you need. So well done, congratulations.
Okay,
very cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Ro. And congratulations, Sonia. Really cool prizes.
Excellent.
Everybody's a winner, right?
Keep those
Everybody
questions
gets
going.
FC.
Come keep
everybody.
Here we go.
Gets it.
Here we go.
Everybody's a winner today.
It's the pitch.
Come on. Man.
How do people go about?
It's free.
How do people go about downloading it? Please.
I don't understand.
Show us the graphic that you've got prepared.
We got 4 thumbs down. I'm saying, where's the thumbs down for free software? I don't get it. Right? I don't get it. Should we be paying you to try the software? It's free software. This is me. I obsess about the 4 thumbs down. All right, let's go to the website. But in a couple minutes, just talk amongst yourselves, guys.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Well, this is also the time. Like, even though we've given away the prizes, that doesn't mean you should leave. We've still got some great stuff coming up. I interrupted Nick before we got to some juicy content here. And it's also time to get your questions in as well. So time is running out for questions. I've got a few good ones in my pad of questions, but get those in right now, and we'll come to them soon. Yes. Oh, so this is how you go. So you go to the borisfx.com website. You click on the big button that says Continuum FCP 2021. And then what does one do after that, Mr. Brian?
Boom.
We scroll down, or do we just click the button?
You can just click that button right there in the middle on the main carousel, and it goes right to the downloads. And then all you got to do
That's amazing.
Just go ahead and download. Then you got to sign in with your free account.
Sign in. It's a free account. Free account.
I don't have an account.
Oh. But when you install that, do you need a license key?
You don't need a license key at all.
Wow.
So we got some great videos. You guys can watch a little overview video that the lovely, talented Mr. Nick Harauz created for us, right? So everything you saw today, a little overview, watch the overview. And if you have any questions about actually installing the beta, the lovely and talented Vincent Morali, our internal product specialist for Continuum, has put together a nice little video for you guys just walking you through the installation and use. You can download the installer, and then any questions you have about using, just go ahead and post them in the Continuum FCP forum. This is a great resource. I love this. Peter and Jason, the Continuum team are in there. Boris is in there himself. If you guys want to talk to Boris, he is in the forums as well, answering questions. So definitely go ahead and post all your questions in the forum. It's a great place to have access to the product team.
And there are forums for each of the products as well. So it's also something to note.
Yep, 100%. There are Sapphire forums and Mocha forums, Particle Illusion forums, Silhouette, Optics. Great to see Miss Mary Poplar there answering a ton of questions, all in the Mocha forums as well. So definitely go ahead and click on the community tab on borisfx.com, and that's where you can get to all the individual product forums.
Cool. Well, shall we let's get back to Nick. You've got some more stuff to show us. I can't wait.
Yes,
Let's have a little look.
I had a few more things to show, Ben, and I thought we can't finish talking about the continuum inside of Final Cut without talking about some transitions and the transitions that ship with the beta. So I'm here in my effects browser, but let me head inside of the transition browser, and you can already see here all of the various categories specifically designed for transitions. A lot of them, or some of them, are counterparts to the effects that we've seen, but just in a transition form, which is really nice. So you don't have to go through and try to add those effects onto two clips and then create sort of a transition animation. There's a few here for you, like cross-processing, the day for night look that we took a look at earlier, and even film stocks. Not the amount of presets, but just being able to sort of have a film stock transition. Now, let's apply the BCC glow transition. There are a couple of great ways that you can utilize transitions as well as those BCC effects with Final Cut's architecture. So for those of you who've been using it for a while, you'll know, of course, that Command-T is your gateway to essentially adding the default transition to each of the clips in your Final Cut project. And at any time that you want, if you find an effect or a transition that you love, you can always make that the default. And now, rather than me having to drag that onto the edit points of a clip, I can press Command-T. Let's just single click this now. We should see that that's the BCC glow that's been applied. So I'm not quite getting time playback, but let me show you what we start with. We'll make a few changes along the way. Okay. One thing I love about transitions as well in Final Cut is the fact that besides being able to, of course, make that transition longer based on how much handles you have on clips, but as well as how long you want the transition to be, if you hover over the middle here, you can actually roll your edit. So right now I'm changing the edit points here on my clips without increasing the length of my project and moving the transition along with that. We can see that a bit better by going into something called the Precision Editor in Final Cut. This happens when you double click the edit point or the transition in this case. In edit terminology, this is known as your A side to the edit, and this is known as the B side, or alternatively, your outgoing and incoming clip. Anything that's gray is essentially the clip's handles, while everything that's highlighted is going to be the actual source that you're using. And you can use this to do a bunch of things. So one thing is I could actually continue to trim clips in this view if I needed more handles. And then I can then roll that transition even further along these two sources to find the perfect point to which I want to add them. Now with that transition selected, we've got a max glow amount here, so I'm directly over that. I'm just going to increase that property a little bit. And I've noticed that in a lot of these transitions, as soon as my property updates here, there are also a control for a prism amount, which adds a little bit of RGB separation in the clip. Let me actually enter just a value here of 50 versus try to grab the slider there. And then I'm going to go to the prism amount here and set this to a value of 30. We should start to see in a moment some of that prism separation there in your clip. I think this is really nice to have built into a transition, giving a unique look outside of some of the effects and transitions that you have inside of Final Cut. Now, just like effects inside of Final Cut, or all of the BCC effects, I can actually make a copy of this transition and open it in Motion as well. And if you're ever looking to have an effect combined in your transition with, let's say, this glow base, you can do so. All you have to do is, like we saw in an earlier example, you can open a transition inside of Motion. And again, you don't want to save, you want to make a copy of this right away, so Shift-Command-S. And someone was asking earlier also the BCC effects. So let me actually head into the filters library. And inside the filters library here at the bottom, you can see all of the BCC effects. I'll just do BCC to search for that, and we can see all of them listed here. And you could actually take one of these if you wanted and combine it with the elements that are making up the transition to create some pretty unique looks. And bring me up to a conversation that I had yesterday again with you, Ben. One of your some of your favorite effects inside of Continuum have to do with lens distortion. Am I correct?
Yes. I think that it's those are some of the I'm not going to say undiscovered, but sort of underappreciated effects, I think, especially for creating some more sort of stylized looks.
So here's a lens distortion transition. Right now, the amount itself is quite aggressive, but we could bring down the curvature and the amounts that are happening there on the lens. But just as an example, maybe you want to take a glow transition and then head into the effects browser and combine that with one look, or maybe a distortion type look like that lens treatment that you were mentioning. See the lens distortion. I'll apply it to this first shot here in the timeline. So waiting for some positive feedback.
I think you're doing great, Nick. Well done. Well done. Is that the sort of positive feedback you were after?
I was not going to move forward until I got a round of applause from you and Brian.
You're a handsome man. You're a sweet Canadian.
This is
talented,
and
well-spoken, beautiful microphone and camera.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I haven't even apologized. Wait, I have apologized once, but I've been trying very hard not to say sorry too much. So here's that distortion effect you were talking about, Ben, And I showed the transition beforehand, but even with like a subtle amount at a negative number, it creates some interesting looks, definitely on the outside of the frame. And I thought to myself, and of course the people who are engineering this plugin also thought of this as a transitional element because it adds almost kind of like a whoop-like transition. So you could essentially, if this wasn't built into a transition that you were using, go inside of Motion, add the lens distortion effect, and then just keyframe this distortion ramp, right? Starting from a negative, maybe from a value of 0, not 45, but 0, then ramping it up at the height of the transition to a negative 10, and then keyframing it back down to 0, or of course a smaller distortion amount. So I love the idea of exploring this package and even looking at some of those transitions and adding additional effects for if it suits the content that you guys are putting together.
So the other thing you can do is show just quickly, like really quickly. Can you just move the center from the left? Sorry, from center, just left to right, because that's one of my
do you guys want to see
things I like to do with it?
Gotcha. So so here's it on the transition, but let's I'm going to pause for a second because I actually want to go to the effect and see something, Ben. Yes. So the effect itself has an on-screen control representing the center that you're talking about. And you can see here that I can actually move this around the shot. And this could be a super awesome value for transitional elements too. This is great. Not to mention just keyframing on a regular shot. Very cool.
So now you see it's one of my favorites.
You've used this on a couple of projects. That's awesome. And I think there's a lot of effects like that where up for discovery in this package in all the BCC plus effects in terms of their acceleration. Now, heading to one of my favorites, I'm going to actually go here to the clip. This is the last effect I'm showing. And I'm going to go to my edit menu and remove these effects. Let's head to the optical diffusion category here. And what I'm looking for is BCC mist. And I just love how it kind of pops the glows and the highlights, as well as gives you a look. If we go here inside the effects editor, there are a number of presets for this one as well.
Saving some of the best for last. BCC mist.
Oh, yeah. And I love how with all of these effects, you can have some descriptions that are written for them to give you a sense for how you can use them or what they're intended to be used for. So I'm going to go side with Ben right now. I'm going to go for a warm look. Sorry, Brian.
Oof.
Yeah, I'll go with warm mist 8. And let's change the temperature here. You can get a really dramatic look with just a few clicks. And even stylize the hue of that. And of course come in and dial back the look in terms of its saturation and other values by playing around with your brightness and your saturation slider. Of course, I recommend that once you find something that you like, and don't forget to head and create a preset from it, because you never know when you might be able to use that again. And those simple steps, even if I just change 3 or 4 various properties in here, it's going to become easier for me to apply it to other clips or even apply it as an adjustment layer source. Yeah, so I love this mist effect. There's some great examples of that as well inside the little video trailer that you guys have for the FCP Continuum beta.
I have to bring in this question. I mean, I just have to.
That was a cue, Brian.
Yeah, let me apologize, but I have to bring in. Let's go to this my new setup here. Why does it cost money? I'm broke, says Mobile. And I mean, at this point, I totally get it that, we've been streaming now for 90 minutes, but let's just take a moment to reset. We're showing Continuum FCP effects, which are currently in beta, and you can have access to these effects for free. No money needed. So we welcome you to the team. It is a fully functional beta, so it's not limited in any sort of way. The only thing that's limited is in time, so I would say act now. It's going to be going on for the next couple months, but at some point the beta will end and we will release Continuum packs for FCP, and the grace period will end. But the one thing I will say, because I'm kind of reading the chat here, is we are showing Continuum in FCP, which you definitely need a Apple computer to use FCP. So apologize if there's some confusion out there. Continuum effects do support a whole bunch of other host applications like Premiere and Resolve that work on Windows, Mac. But what we're showing today and what does have the free beta period in it right now is Continuum for FCP. So you do need a Macintosh computer or a Hackintosh computer, or somehow you need Mac OS and to run Final Cut to get these effects for free. But thanks for your question, Mobile. Appreciate it. And I love free software.
If you do want free software, we actually have Particle Illusion Standalone,
Nice.
which is 100% free, available on the boriseffects.com website. Download
segue.
today. Thank you very much, and make pretty particles all the day long. Great. I think do we have some video, Mr. Brian? We've got Particle Illusion. There we go. Thank you very much.
I'm still in PI. Free.
Yeah,
Free to use.
that's good. That's good.
Free to
Free.
use.
And Particle Illusion Standalone 2021, 100% free. Grab it.
When we did the
Everyone loves
Particle
free
Illusion,
software.
we did the Particle Illusion stream, we got 1 thumbs down too. Not that I remember it and obsess about it, but don't understand that either. 100% free. Go ahead and download PI. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Nick, thank you so very, very much. That was great. I think we could easily spend, so much longer just going through. There are hundreds of plugins, thousands of effects, and we've seen 6, 7.
Yeah. I know.
So strap in.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be our first 48-hour live stream.
Right? People always say that. People always say, like, show me everything Continuum, show me everything Sapphire, show me everything in Mocha, Silhouette, or Optics. And I'm always like, okay. Right? Me and you are going to get intimate for the next 14 hours. Right? I know. It's quite a lot. I mean, how many effects are in Continuum?
So much.
There's over 200, at this point. So, yeah, it's quite a lot. It definitely falls into the suite of effects, not the effect.
And guys, thanks for having me. And it reminds me of just when you guys are talking about the effects, like I'm now thinking, oh my gosh, I forgot to show this, this, and this. But there's only so many hours in the day. And there's also an effect called BCC lens flare, which is accelerated as well. Not only do you have lens flare presets, but there's a full-on lens flare editor that's built inside. In fact, in the effects editor, in the parameter section, you can click on a edit flare button and have control over each of the elements that make up your lens flare, as well as a few auto animation properties that are built right inside of Final Cut.
Well, you know me and lens flares. Okay, we really are going to be doing another couple of hours, so thank you very much. No, that was great. That was great, Nick. That was there are just so many. I think if even out of the ones you've shown, you've got a couple of my firm favorites in there, but like there are other ones that I use all the time. Things like chromatic aberration and stuff that we haven't touched on, like little utility effects. Just for there's so many of those small little things.
Hair shutter.
It's just too many.
No.
Yeah.
See what you've done.
It's great.
See
all
what I've done.
It's great fun. It's great fun.
Yeah.
So
and thank
I
you
think
guys for having me.
we're going to have to we're going to have to sort of say stop it there. But Nick, is there anything you would like to plug?
Thank you, Nick.
To stop applauding. It's plugs. It's plugs time. It's plugs.
If anyone has a Final Cut question, reach out at nick@creative111.com. I also have, if you guys are interested in a 30-day free LinkedIn learning trial to learn Final Cut or any number of classes, feel free to email me there too at nick@creative111.com, and I will get a little code for you.
Nick's courses are brilliant. I can heartily recommend recommend them. Just like the number of hours I've had Nick's voice in my ears, it's uncomfortable actually saying that out loud to you, Nick. But here we are.
I was about to say the same for you, Ben, when I think of Mocha.
Well, yes. I have been talking a lot about Mocha over the years. That's true.
Yes.
Cool. Well, Brian, take us home. What do we have? You've got another graphic for us, I'm sure.
Do you have a graphic?
You do.
Another graphic?
You do. You've got something. You got something.
Come on.
I do. Hold on.
Oh, here we go. Come on. This is embarrassing. You've embarrassed me.
I'm interested.
You've embarrassed the audience. Look at this. Yep. As Brian said, we are coming up to 1 year of live streams. If you'd have thought we'd still be here a year later, I wouldn't have given you good odds in Vegas, where we should have been a year ago. And yet here we are. We've grown from small acorns to mighty oaks. So on Wednesday, April 21st, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to be doing a big blowout live stream. We've got tons of prizes to give away. We have special guests and fun. Well, you can't spell fun without F-U-N. I'm not sure what that means, but I kind of started saying something and decided to bail at the last minute.
Everyone's inviting. Social distancing will be required. We will be wearing masks. No, we won't over the internet. Yes. It's going to be fun. We're going to have some time. We're going to give away tons of prizes. We have some really special kind of special stuff in store. I will leave it as a tease at that, but definitely you guys want to tune in. This is in 3 weeks, so we can get ready. So definitely come back and see us Wednesday.
We don't have
21st.
time to plan such a big party in 3 weeks. What are you doing? It's going to be huge.
It'll be fine. It'll be fun. Worst case scenario, we'll just give away a tons of seats of Sapphire, Continuum, Mocha, Silhouette, and Optics, right? So we can't go wrong.
Yes. Join us for the giveaways. Stay for the the special graphics that Brian's making for it. All right. I just want to say thank you again. Thank you again to Nick Harauz for taking us through Continuum FCP. Thank you very much to Brian in Mission Control for directing another lovely live stream. And thank you, of course, to everyone still watching out there. It's very, very much appreciated. When we did first start these live streams, we didn't know what to expect, and they've been growing consistently throughout the year. And obviously, a lot of that is to do with you and all the feedback we're getting from them. So thank you very much for joining with us. We will see you again on the 21st for our big birthday bash. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. It's me, Ben Brownlee, with Boris Effects. See you again soon.
Bye, everyone.